Okay, so let's get started. If anyone else joins us, I'll let them in from the waiting room. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending this afternoon session on program planning and enrollment. My name is Stefania. I am one of the academic advisors here at New College. We're so happy that you came to the session today to sort of learn about program planning and enrollment. So March the 1st begins the program enrollment period. So we hope that you find this presentation informational in terms of planning for your programs. Just a few administrative things before we get started. So please remember to never type your student number or any confidential information into the group chat. You may have noticed the session is being recorded. However, we will have a Q&A portion at the end of the session, which we will remove from the recording. So not to worry about that. The reason we are recording this session is so that it can be posted at a later time, and that will be posted on the new Student Academic Hub, which is sort of where you found this information. So I'm just going to let this other student in. So that's why we're recording the session, but the question portion will not be recorded. We will have a Q&A period at the end. So we do ask that if you do have questions throughout the duration of the presentation, that you sort of keep those until the end. You can use the chat function for those questions, or feel free to unmute yourself at that point and you can ask your question to the whole group. We do have one of our other academic advisors here to help with that portion. That's Amber. You may or may not be familiar with Amber. You might have met with her in the past. So feel free to ask those questions to us and we'll try to answer those the best that we can. So I think that's about everything administrative for now. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so you're all likely familiar that when you apply to the Faculty of Arts and Science, you sort of do so under an admission category. So you would have applied from one of these 6 admission streams or admission categories. So that's computer science, humanities, the life sciences, the physical and mathematical sciences, Rotman commerce, or social sciences. So although these admission categories may have shaped your first year, what we refer to as your core courses. So for example, if you were admitted in a life sciences category, you probably took courses like Bio 120, Bio 130, Chem 135, 136, and the Math 135, 136. So that's sort of why you have an admission category and sort of how you would have planned accordingly for your first year. So at the end of your first year, typically, or once you've completed 4 credits, your admission category is no longer really associated with your program of study. And so that's why you're choosing a program, whether that's within your admission category, or sometimes it's outside of your admission category. And that does happen for some students. So a student may have been admitted with a life sciences category, but chooses then to take a humanities-based program, or vice versa. So it does happen and can be common. The only exceptions to this, or sort of complexities with this, is a student who doesn't have either a computer science admission guarantee or a Rotman commerce admission guarantee, and they're trying to get into the program at a later time in their year of study. So if that's you and you're thinking of that switch later on, then that's when we would recommend that you book a quick academic advising appointment with our office, just so that we can discuss this plan with you in more detail. So yeah, that's sort of the general information on admission categories and sort of what happens after your first year. So if you were confused of sort of how your program of study relates to your admission category, it may or it may not, depending on what stream or what program you're planning to apply and enroll for. Okay, so how do I pick programs, which is probably why most of you are here today. So we're going to discuss a little bit about the types of programs, what is a program, sort of how to apply for programs, and all of the different programs offered at Arts and Science, because there are so many to choose from. Okay, so first we have to understand what a program is. So a program simply refers to a group of courses that you take in a specific subject area. So for example, history is a program, computer science is a program, economics is a program. Sorry. And then within those programs, you have what we call like a different type of program combination. Okay. So there's the specialist, the major, and the minor. And so depending on what you're looking to study and the breadth of knowledge that you want in a particular area of study will sort of determine which combinations you choose to enroll for. So in a specialist, you would be taking 10 to 14 FCE. Now, FCE just refers to full course equivalent. So it's basically the number of credits or a credit count in a particular area. So most students who are taking specialists want a large breadth of knowledge in a specific area of study. And so they have a really strong interest in one area, and that's where they choose to focus most of their most of their courses within. And then you have the major and the minor. So in a major, you will be taking 6 to 8 FCE, and then in a minor, you'd be taking 4 FCE. So again, depending on what combinations you choose, it's entirely up to you. There are a certain combinations that you have to fall within in order to graduate. We'll go through that in a little bit, but just start to think about sort of what types of programs you're thinking about enrolling for, and whether or not you want to spend a large amount of your courses in that particular area, or if you want a more interdisciplinary degree where you're studying a few different things and you're not studying them at a 14 credit count, essentially. Okay. So here are some important resources. We'll provide links also once the recording is posted. We'll have a short list of all the links here so you can go back and find these quite readily. So the arts and science calendar is probably one that you're all probably familiar with. So that sort of looks like this. So in the calendar, you sort of can search for programs over here. You can do a program search, search by a program area. You can do a course search. And then, of course, the academic calendar will have all of your rules and regulations, your degree requirements, information that you'll need in order to sort of complete both your program and your degree requirements. The other one that is quite handy and what we tell students to refer to a lot of the time is the Sydney Smith Commons Program Toolkit. Now, I don't know if most of you are already familiar with this resource, but it's a really great guide. It's a comprehensive tool that sort of houses all of the information related to program and program enrollment in one space. There's also program exploration days, which are happening this week as well. We've also posted that on the New Student Academic Hub. So I encourage you, if you haven't checked these out already, that you do so. And they're really great because they're categorized by certain program types and certain areas of study. So it's not too general like this presentation is, it's more tailored to a specific program of study. And it also has sort of important dates, programs by unit. And this is a great one because it sort of lists all of the programs that's in arts and science and also what type they are, limited or open. And we'll go through that in a second on the difference of what those mean. But this is a great tool definitely to bookmark and sort of refer back to even after you choose programs because it sort of links to the calendar and you can come back and explore sort of the program showcase and sort of get more information about careers after graduation. So it's a really good tool to just keep in mind. Okay, so why programs? So basically, why are we having this presentation? Why do we talk so much about programs? Why do you choose them after your first year? Okay, so basically, once you've completed 4 credits, for most students, that does happen at the end of their first year. You do need to be enrolled in what we refer to as a suitable or a proper program combination. So that combination is this list right here. So you need to be enrolled in either one specialist, 2 majors, or what we refer to as the double major option, or one major and two minors. Okay, so you have to be in one of these combinations, one of the three, in order to not only course enroll, but also in order to graduate. Okay, because you'll notice when you're looking at your degree requirements, one of those requirements is completing a proper program combination and then completing the requirements within that program or programs. Okay, so just to keep that in mind. So yes, you need those in order to graduate. To determine sort of what you want to do in terms of a combination, you should start to think about what programs you're interested in. If you have a few programs that you like or you're considering or you have strong interest in, then it might make sense to do the two major or the one major and two minors option. We'll hear in a bit from a student through a video that sort of chose to take the one major and two minors option because they wanted a more interdisciplinary aspect to their degree. They wanted to study a lot of different things. They didn't have one specific thing in mind. And so it's great too if you're, let's say, doing a science program, but you want to take an arts program, just either purely out of interest or to sort of improve different skills. You might consider the combination of programs instead of doing the one specialist. So this is going to depend on sort of what you're thinking about long term, what your career goals are, what your academic plans are. And of course, if you're not sure which one to pick or you're considering a multitude of different programs, you can always book an appointment with our office and we'd be happy to go through that plan with you one-on-one. So just something to consider. And then, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, once you've completed these 4 credits, you need to be enrolled in a proper program combination. Okay, so for most of you, if your plan is that you're completing your 4th credit by this winter term, you will be course enrolling in July. You need to have those programs in place ahead of course enrollment. Okay, so yeah, so then there are the program types. We talked a little bit about this earlier. There are 2 different types of programs. So we have what's referred to as open programs, and then we have limited programs. So there is a difference, and there's quite a big difference. So it's really important that you note the differences between these 2 types. With open programs, there aren't any specific courses that you require to enroll in the program. So as long as you have either completed 4 credits or you're on your way to complete 4.0 FCE, you can apply to an open enrollment program on ACORN. Okay, the only thing to note about this, and we will talk about this a little bit later because I have an example with the biology program. Even though with open programs, there are no admission or enrollment requirements to get into the program, there are often going to be completion requirements that you should do or have done in your first year. Those are usually the core courses, the foundation courses, in order to not only complete the program, but to sort of take subsequent courses down the line. So if you have not completed those courses in time of enrolling, that's okay. You can still enroll in the program, but you do just want to keep those in mind because you will have to enroll for those in your second year. And I'll show you an example of that once we come across the bio program in the academic calendar. So it'll make a little bit more sense. But just keep that in mind. And then, of course, with the limited programs, there's what we refer to as enrollment requirements, or you might hear this being called admission requirements, basically things that you have to do in order to apply and get essentially, hopefully, into the program of your choice. So often at times there can be prerequisite courses, and that's usually the majority of these limited programs. And also with those prerequisite courses, there's typically minimum grades that you have to achieve in order to satisfy program enrollment. Those minimum grades a lot of the times are not obviously the guaranteed admission to the program. Usually they are just the minimum, and depending on the pool of applicants for that year, that minimum grade can be higher. So achieving the minimum is not the only way to get into the program. And then there's sometimes special requirements. So some of those are an application or an essay or an audition, and that depends on the program. The most common one for this is the computer science program. There's a supplementary application that students have to complete to get into that program as well. So just keep that in mind when you are sort of looking ahead towards your programs. If we look here, the example being given is the economics major, which has the following prerequisites. So that's Eco 101, Eco 102, Math 135, and Math 136 with the listed minimum grades. Programs like the psychology program or cognitive science, though, will have competitive grade averages. So for psychology, the minimum grade in Psych 100 is 75%, but that percent does not guarantee your admission. So you just want to keep that in mind when you are planning for your courses and you're planning for your future program enrollments. Okay. So when do I enroll? So essentially, program enrollment it happens every year. Each academic year, it typically begins in March and it typically ends in September. So outside of that period, you cannot make changes to your programs. Okay, so that's why you have this period of time each year to make these decisions, whether you're going to continue in a program, change a program, delete a program, add a new program. Within that 7-month window, there are even further sort of academic deadlines to keep in mind or program deadlines to keep in mind. So with open programs, you have the entirety of the period to get into the program to enroll for the program. So between March 1st to September 20th, you can add open programs. However, with limited programs, there are what we call the first request period and then the second request period. And within those two periods, there are a set of dates that you have to make a note of in order to apply. So for this year, the first request period begins on March the 1st. It ends on April the 28th. And the second request period begins on July the 8th and it ends on August the 22nd. So what this means and what the difference between these are is if you plan to complete all of your enrollment or admission requirements by the end of this winter 2023 term, then you will be applying for your program, again, if it's a limited program, during the first request period. If you plan to complete outstanding requirements, let's say you have to repeat a course to get into a program, or you didn't take the course in the fall winter session and you need to take it in the summer, then you're applying for the limited program during the second request period, which opens on July the 8th. And then the departments will have your final grade in order to make their decision by the end of that period. Now, you just have to remember that not all limited programs are available to apply for during the second request period. So it's really important that you check the program toolkit or the arts and science calendar to make sure that the program you would like to apply for accepts applications during that second request period. Okay, a lot of the collaborative life sciences programs, for example, are not available to apply during the second request period. There are a select few, but there's not a lot. Also, programs like Rotman Commerce or Computer Science, their first request period only. So those are some things just to keep in mind when you are planning to apply for programs and you're thinking about program enrollment. You just really want to make sure that the program you would like to apply for has that availability, especially if your plan is to enroll in the summer session, which is coming up and the timetable is now out. So you might already be thinking about this, but I just want to put that on each of your minds, each of your radars, so that you sort of consider that ahead of summer course enrollment. Okay. So just some additional information that we as advisors get asked quite a lot. And so this is sort of some helpful information to remember. So you can request on ACORN as many limited programs as you would like. The only exception to this is the collaborative life sciences programs. With those, you can only request up to 6, okay? Anything that you add in addition to the sixth will be deleted. So just keep that in mind. Like I said earlier, if you expect to complete prerequisite courses by the end of the winter term, you will apply for your limited programs during the first request period, and those invitations will be based on your fall and winter term grades. If you expect to complete those prerequisite courses during the summer session, you're going to apply for the limited program during the second request period, and those invitations will be based on your summer session final grades. Okay. Something else you may need to consider, and if this is you and you fall into this sort of category and you have questions about this, it is good to book an appointment because it can be a little bit confusing with backup and placeholder programs and when you should do that and when you don't need to worry about that. But essentially, like I mentioned earlier, if you're not in a suitable program combination ahead of course enrollment in July, you won't be able to course enroll essentially. So you may need to consider some backup programs where you're filling either that one specialist, two major, or major, two minor. So that's something you'll want to consider because again, open programs you can add right away on ACORN. You can be automatically active or enrolled in that program. You can enroll up to 3 programs. Now, that doesn't mean you need to be. So if you're in one specialist, you don't need to be in 2 other programs. However, if you choose to add up to 3 programs, so that would be somebody who is in 2 majors and they want to go for a third program, that third program has to be a minor. Okay, but that doesn't mean you need to have this. Just means if that's something that you're interested in, you can do it. It has to be a minor. And if that is something you are considering, I do strongly recommend that you do discuss that with an advisor because depending on what programs you're looking to complete, that may be quite a heavy course load. Most students, if they're doing this option, it's because they have quite a bit of overlapping courses or courses that sort of can fit into different programs. So if you think that that's a plan that you have, it's a good idea to run that by just one of our academic advisors, just so we can just check in with you and sort of see what your future plan is in terms of completing all those programs. And like I mentioned, some limited programs don't have a second request period, like a lot of those collaborative life sciences programs, which is something to keep in mind. Okay. So how do you enroll in programs? So we'll look at open programs and then limited programs. So with open programs, like we've been discussing, you only need those 4 credits. There's no application required. You can add immediately and directly on your ACORN. You will do all your program enrollments through ACORN. So there's no other portal you have to access or check. It's all done through your enroll and manage screen on ACORN, much like when you course enroll. And then with open programs, that program enrollment is immediately active. For limited programs, again, you need those 4 credits. You have to have those specific courses, the grades, the application, whatever it is that you need. Much like the open, you're going to do the request on ACORN. You can request as many, except for the collaborative life sciences programs where that's a maximum of 6. With these programs, you won't go into an active or enrolled status right away because you're applying. So it will go into a requested status. And then from there, you're going to wait for the admission decision. So those are issued by the undergraduate offices of each department. So it will be whatever department is sponsoring that program, that's the department that you would check in with if you're looking to speak to someone about a decision or an admission requirement, okay? You will want to wait until those decisions are made because departments can't give you any information sooner than that. They're sort of done collectively, and then those decisions are issued to all students. So you will have to sort of wait for those to be announced. And then obviously you're going to be invited or refused. Those are the 2 options. If you're invited and you want that program, then you're going to accept the program invitation. And from there, you will become active or enrolled in the program on ACORN. And just to keep in mind, if you are interested in the program, and you are going away for the summer, you're not really regularly checking your ACORN, it's really important that you make notes of the enroll by dates for limited programs, because if you miss this date, your invite will be rescinded and you won't be able to get into the program. So if you are not planning to be around in the summer, at least put in your calendar somewhere these enroll by date. So you're making sure you're checking to at least see what the status of your application is with the program, and then making sure that you are enrolling by the date, because you don't want it to, sort of be taken away and you lose out on that opportunity. Okay. So for the first request period, the invitations will be going out as of April the 29th to June the 9th, and the enroll by date for that is July the 7th. For the second request period, those invitations will be going out as of August the 23rd to September the 6th. That enroll by date is September the 20th, which is the actual end date of the program enrollment period. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All of this information is on the program toolkit. So again, we'll link this for you, but it sort of breaks it down here for you. There's this great chart that sort of shows you when the dates are for each program type and sort of which request period. So these are sort of the dates we've been talking about, and these are the, the enroll by dates that you need to make note of, especially if your plan is to sort of be offline for the summer. Now, the collaborative life sciences programs are a little bit unique in the sense that they are in collaboration with the Faculty of Medicine. They are pretty popular programs, especially amongst life sciences students. A lot of these programs are first request period only. There are a few that you can apply for during the second request period, some of which include the fundamental genetics and its application specialist, the global health and disease specialist, as well as the neuroscience specialist or major. You apply for these programs the same way as any other limited program. You do that on ACORN. You will do that for the most part during the first request period, which begins on March the 1st. With the collaborative life sciences programs, they have what they call iteration periods, or decisions of iteration periods. So there's a first, a second, and a third. Okay, so if you get a decision in the first decision iteration, that is between May 19th and June the 1st. Again, all of this information is on the program toolkit under the collaborative life sciences programs. So we'll link that as well. But just to give you an overview of how their programs work, that's the first decision iteration. Then there's a second one, which is June 7th to June the 19th. And then there is a third one, which is from June the 23rd to July the 7th. And much like the other limited programs, if you are invited, you need to accept the invitation during the iteration period that you were offered the decision. Okay, so again, if you leave the invitation, it will expire and you won't, you'll likely not be able to get it back into that program. So just make a note of that as well if this is your plan to apply for one of these programs. And then we have how we categorize our programs. So when you are searching for a program on ACORN, when you're ready to go ahead and either apply or enroll, you can either type that by the title of the program or the program code, both of which are all found on the academic calendar. So a program code sort of looks like this. The A and the S stands for arts and science. And then it's followed by either MAJ, which refers to a major, MIN, which is a minor, or SPE, which is a specialist. And then you have the corresponding numerical code there. And then each code aligns with a title and a type of program. So if we look at the animal physiology program, that is an open program. The biochemistry is a limited program that does not accept during the second request period. And you have programs like economics and history that are limited and that have specific courses and grades, as well as variable minimum grade averages to obtain. So here's an example of how it would look in the calendar. And much like I was saying earlier, I was wanting to show you all an example with the biology major program. So this is again taken from the academic calendar. If you search the program, it sort of gives you the title, the fact that it's a science program, and then the program code. It will then explain what the requirements are. So this is an open enrollment program, which means it can be added right away on ACORN as long as you've completed those 4 credits or you're planning to complete that 4th credit by the end of the winter. Now, this is what I was referring to a little bit earlier about sort of those completion requirements. So although you don't need these requirements to get into the program, the first year core courses would be Bio 120, Bio 130, and either Chem 135, 136, or the Chem 151. So if you haven't done any of these courses in your first year and you're planning to apply for this program, then you're going to have to plan to take these courses either this summer or next fall, winter, because you'll likely need these courses to get into the upper level courses in order to complete the program. So that's just something to note. When we're looking at the calendar like this, the semicolon just indicates items in a list. Sometimes you'll just see a comma, and then that dash over here just means or. Okay, and then the bracket breaks down when you have more than one combination of courses. So you will often see this too with Math 135 and 136. So that's sort of how you would read that. And then also just showing another example of the psychology major program, which we talked about a bit earlier. Again, just showing you the program code, this one being a limited enrollment program, talking about the variable minimum grade so that, it changes each year depending on the available spaces and the number of applicants. They're looking for at least a 75% in the Psych 100, and then there are those high school level courses that you would have needed to complete. So that's sort of how you would read that. And then sort of how you would do this on ACORN. You would again use the Enroll and Manage tool. You're going to, though, not select courses. You'll check off the programs, and then you'll do a search for your program, either by the name, the title, or if you had the program code. And then a pop-up screen will appear. It will tell you what type it is. So approval required means it's a limited program. So you're going to request it. And then if it was an open program, it will just say enroll and you'll be in the program. These screenshots and more are available on the Help ACORN website. So ACORN's a great tool, but especially as a first-year student, you may not know how to use all the transactions in ACORN, which is completely fine. There's a lot to know in ACORN. So if you ever need help with sort of like doing anything on ACORN, you can always check this website because it has really great resources of how to do certain things on ACORN. It'll show you pictures and examples, sometimes videos, and you can sort of go through it that way. Okay, so the FAQ page here, we sort of compiled based on a lot of questions that we do get from students. The first being, can you change your program? So yes, you can change your programs. Most students will change programs if they are during their second year. If you're thinking about a program change upper year, so either 3rd or 4th year, it's a good idea to, again, discuss that with an academic advisor, because that's when you get a little bit closer to graduation. And we would just want to make sure that you're on the right track to do that if your plan is to change a program. But you can do that, like you're not held to a certain program. The program you choose today may not be the program you graduate with. I mean, personally, I changed my program at the end of my second year, and I didn't graduate with the program that I thought I was going to do at the end of my first year. So it does happen. It is very common, and you are allowed to change your mind. Okay, so that's really important to remember. Just as you're going through courses and programs, you might discover something new and you might want to change your mind, and that's totally fine. But just remember that you can only make those changes during the program enrollment period. So like I mentioned, that is March through September each academic year. You cannot change your program outside of that period, okay? So just something to keep in mind. There are also programs that are sponsored by some of the colleges, or all of the colleges, I think, typically have programs that they sponsor. So here at New College, for example, we sponsor like the following, some programs that we offer are the African Studies programs, Buddhism, Psychology, and Mental Health, Critical Studies in Equity and Solidarity. So there's a few there, and each college will have that list usually on their website under the program section or academics. So you can kind of look to see, what college is hosting what. You do not need to be a member of the specific college to get into the program, as long as you meet those admission requirements, for the most part. So always check to see what those requirements are. And then the other common question we get is the combination of credits or overlap question. So students will often say, do I have too many courses that overlap? Am I taking too many credits within the same program combinations? Because in order to graduate, okay, you need to have the distinct credit requirement met. So that is a 12.0 distinct requirement. So if you think this is going to be a problem for you, or you're concerned about this specific requirement, it is best to book an advising appointment so we can sort of go through that with you. But this applies to students who are doing more than one program. So anyone in the specialist does not have to worry about this because you're fulfilling more than 12 distinct credits because you're really just focusing on one program. This applies to anyone doing the two majors or the major double minor because you cannot pick too many courses that overlap within these programs because you have to take that 12.0 distinct credits requirement. So a good example of this is, let's say you were enrolled in the physiology major, which is 8 credits, and the bio major, which is also 8 credits. So between those two programs, you need 16 credits to complete the programs. So if we minus that 12.0 distinct credits, that means you can only have up to 4.0 FCE or 4 credits that overlap. So if you're concerned about sort of meeting this requirement, check your Degree Explorer, check your planner tool, and then let's have a conversation if you have questions about that, because it can be a little bit confusing and we would want to sort of sit down with you and go over your program selections. Okay. So there's also some great resources as well that we'll post. Like we said, the Sydney Smith Program Toolkit is a really good tool to use, as I was showing you a bit earlier, and we'll look at one or two student stories. There's a program showcase and a student stories tool, both of which sort of highlight different programs from upper year level students. They talk about their experience in the program, why they chose the program, what sort of careers they're looking at, taking in the future based on their program. So if you're sort of, not sure, what to take, or you have so many options, I mean, that's a good tool to use. There's also the career exploration and education sort of, or CLNX resource, where you can sort of go through that. You can meet one-on-one with a career educator or a peer advisor if you're sort of thinking about the future, thinking about where this program can lead you sort of post-graduation. If you're thinking about grad school, if you're thinking about a lot of different things, it might, you might benefit from having a conversation earlier on. And then, of course, you can use the Career Navigator tool, and there's lots of quizzes and resources that you can use that help you to get to know sort of what skills that you currently have, things you might be interested in, and you're not sort of sure what program that sort of lends itself to. These are great tools to sort of use to put that into, to sort of put that into your planning process. And of course, if you're still not sure, you have no idea where to start, you can always book an appointment with us and we can kind of go through these tools with you one-on-one. So this is sort of where you would find the upper year student stories and the program showcase stuff. Okay, another great tool is your Degree Explorer, which you can get through the same way you access ACORN. On Degree Explorer, you can not only check your requirements, both program and degree, but there's a planner tool. So you can actually plan future programs to check to see what requirements you've either already completed. It'll check them off for you, what's missing, what you need to do, things like that. So it's a really great resource to use as well. And then, of course, we have our college resources. So you're all familiar with the Academic Hub, where you access this information. There's also our new College Registrar's Office Quirkus course that you should all have access to as well. If you don't have access to that yet, and you are a registered student for this fall winter, then you can always email our office and we can add you to that course. And then we have on-location academic advisors, there's accessibility services, counseling, learning strategists, international transition advisors, career educators, and of course, academic advisors. These are all resources that you as a current U of T registered student have access to. So if you're not sure where to start and you think you may want to use one of these services but don't know how to go about it, again, let's talk, book an appointment, email our office. We can always sort of help point you in the right direction. And then we also have the Math Learning Center as well as the Stats Aid Center. So if you want sort of extra additional help and support with one of your courses in math or stats, we have that center there available for you. Their hours and location is actually on the new College Registrar's Office Quirkus course. There's also the Writing Center and the DGIV Library, which are great resources if you sort of want to talk to someone about, essay writing, or just, you want someone to review something for you, or sort of you have questions about citations, things like that. Those are great resources. And then, of course, there's the Office of Residence and Student Life. So for any of you that are on residence, you can always check in, ask your Dons questions. What programs did they take? What are they looking to do after graduation? Or, just talking to people, your peers, upper year students. Often at times you can get some, great information and insight there from people who are actually doing the program. And then there's obviously campus resources as well. So the Academic Success Center is a great one, especially if you want to sort of check in with someone on, planning out for, or, getting some great learning strategies for course management, how to prioritize certain things, how to build a really great schedule, how to, deal with so many competing deadlines, things like that. And then, as we discussed, there's accessibility services. There's the career exploration, the CIE, or the Center for International Experience, which is a really great resource for any international students who need or want information related to their study permit or the postgraduate work permit option, things like that. And then there's health and wellness and the My Student Support Program, often referred to as My SSP. And those are great, great tools and resources if you feel like either you need a healthcare professional, of course, but also if you just want to talk to someone, okay? So like My SSP offers 24/7 counseling. You can just talk to someone if you're feeling lost or confused and you're sort of like, overwhelmed by all the information. I mean, you can again always talk to our office, but you can always call the MySSP platform as well. And that is it. Before we go, I'm just going to play one of those videos that I was talking about before, the student stories through the Arts and Science website. So I'm just going to connect that. Give me just 1 minute here. Just going to reshare my screen. Okay. I'm going to share the audio.
My advice would be to try to pick a nice blend of different subjects. If you really want to study just one thing and do a specialist, that's great. But at the same time, having an interdisciplinary degree is really going to help you see the world more fully and actually help you appreciate the other things that you're studying. And it's really fun to just take something purely out of interest. You can have a minor that doesn't have to do with the main thing you want to do after you graduate. And if anything, it could be a nice break Maybe if you're like me, a STEM student who maybe takes a lot of hard courses, it can be nice to take something in the arts or the humanities and kind of just take a break from everything. So yeah, try something new, try something outside of your comfort zone, and try mixing things up a bit. You don't have to take all of the same thing.
Okay, so yeah, that's just an example of a student taking, different programs outside of STEM, just sort of purely out of interest or, just, trying out different things. And you never know what it can lead to down the line, right? So I hope that pretty much wraps up everything for me. I hope that you've all found that information helpful or you learned something new today. And of course, if you have any questions related to the program enrollment period, which again does begin in about 2 weeks, March the 1st, that you book an appointment with one of your academic advisors, or you can always walk into the front desk and ask your question to one of our student services assistants, or you can phone, email. All of our contact information is available on our Quirkus courses. So yeah, if anyone does have any questions, Amber and I will sort of hang around for the next 10 minutes or so. You can either post those in the chat and then Amber will sort of read those out to the group, or if you'd like to unmute yourself and sort of, raise your hand, and then we can have, time for questions. So if anybody does have any questions, please feel free to ask. Again, although the session is recording, we will be removing that from the uploaded video, so not to worry, okay? So I'll give you all sort of a couple of minutes to think about that. If anyone does have any questions, please feel free.